Why is the media so obsessed with the fact that Anthony Albanese bought a house? Old man buys house. Who cares? Whoop-de-doo. This is tall poppy syndrome at its finest. It's what I hate most about Australia. A man, someone who's worked his entire life, cannot buy a house without getting slammed for it. I am Anthony Albanese's biggest critic, but I'm not going to choose this hill to die on. I'm not going to slam him for buying a house that he wants to live in when he hopefully gets kicked out of the lodge next year. The guy is like 60 years old. He's worked his entire life. He's now the Prime Minister. He earns $589,000 a year plus perks, plus. He has, I'm sure, many investment properties and many investments that are giving him enough money to be able to service the mortgage of a house. And people are going crazy, like they're so surprised that he can afford $4.3 million for a house. $4.3 million, I'm sorry to say, but it's not that much in this current climate. Pretty average houses all across Sydney, in every suburb. I'm not just talking about the eastern suburbs on the harbour. Every suburbs, in the western suburbs, they're going for $2-3 million. Very modest homes. So it's no surprise at all that he and his future wife are going to want to move to the South Coast, to the Central Coast, because she's from there. And they've bought this very modest home. It's a 2-story. I mean, it's nice, but it's nothing crazy. Yes, it's a beautiful position on the water, but how are people finding flaws in this? Does the guy have to live in a 2-bedroom semi his entire life in Marrickville? And his fiance isn't an idiot. I'm sure she's been working her entire life as well and has saved up a lot of money. She probably has some properties as well. They've gone in this together and they want to buy a house. Like, what is the problem with this? So many comments on news stories about this have people saying he shouldn't be allowed to buy a house because we, as the taxpayers, have funded this. This is our home, so he's not allowed to have it, which is complete BS because the guy is doing a job. He's the Prime Minister. He's doing a very stressful job. Now, I know I cannot believe I'm defending Anthony Albanese to the death, but this is just a ridiculous thing to be fighting over. He works a very stressful job. He's on 24/7, and sure, that is the life he's chosen for himself, but he also gets paid handsomely for that, and so he should. If I was the Prime Minister, this is where my empathy comes in. If I was the Prime Minister of the country, I would demand a lot more than $589,000, and you bet your bottom dollar that I would be living in a beautiful penthouse overlooking the harbour because I earned that. Now, I know a lot of people are saying he's really dodgy, he does dodgy deals, blah, blah, blah. Newsflash, every politician is dodgy. I'm not going to focus on Anthony Albanese and bring him down for existing in this system. The problem is the system, the government. You think Peter Dutton isn't doing the same thing and won't do the same thing when he gets in? Of course he will. Every Prime Minister has done it, and every Prime Minister in the future will do it. That's the only reason they go into this public life. Do you think they go in for $589,000? Of course not. They can go to a law firm, be a partner, live a very private life, and earn millions of dollars. They go into public life and deal with all the crap that comes with it because there are other perks. Are they dodgy? Of course. Do I expect there to be no dodginess? Of course not. We're dealing with egos. Politics is an ego game. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's all disgusting. I hate it. I hate it so much. But they all play the game. And until we find a better system, it's gonna happen. And I can't believe how naive some people are to think that the Prime Minister of the country should be earning like 80 grand and live in a flat. You go and do that job. You go and be away from your friends and family, have to go to these boring envelope opening events literally every day of your career, have to shake hands and scratch backs of terrible people, answering phone calls at all hours of the night, dealing with the media. Oh my God, you couldn't pay me enough to do this job. Go do it and see if you'll be okay with living off the minimum wage. Because I don't think you will be. I think that you would be going to HR and saying that this job is too stressful. Also, a lot of people are criticizing Anthony Albanese for kind of always pushing this thing. His shtick is that he grew up in Housing Commission and, now he's Prime Minister of the country. He's a Labour man for life. And they're kind of saying that, that is in contrast with what he's just done, buying this multi-million-dollar home. Where I also don't think that's correct, because what are we saying with that? Are we saying that if you grew up in Housing Commission, you should never be allowed to ascend to higher heights? That if you were born in Housing Commission and you grew up there, that you're not allowed to move social circles? You're not allowed to go to school, go to university, get a really good mark, and then go become a lawyer or a doctor or something like that? I think that's a really minimizing headspace and attitude to have about these things. And if I was Anthony Albanese, I would actually spin it in a really clever way and say, look at what I've done. Look at the opportunities that this country has given me. I've gone from Housing Commission to now being this property investor who has a beautiful house and, has this amazing job. And I've come through from the literal bottom of the bottom to the top job in the country. And that should serve as an inspiration to people. And I just can't believe the closed-mindedness of some people coming out and criticizing that. Again, I don't like Anthony Albanese. No one is ever going to tell me that I like him or I'm standing up for him. But these are just concepts that we should all be celebrating. It's very much actually a Liberal Party attitude that we lift everyone up, that by putting in the hard work and living in a great country like we live in, that you can go from nothing to something. And that should be celebrated. And I don't know why people are pushing people to stay in their social class. Why do we want people to be living off the government teat forever? Is it because it makes you feel better? Is it because it makes people who never escaped that social housing bubble feel like they aren't a complete failure? Because I think that has something to do with it. Everyone in this country has such an ego about things. We all want people to do well, but just not better than us or our family. It's this insane jealousy that doesn't exist anywhere else. Go to the United States and they will be cheering you if you pulled yourself up, got out of social housing and became something, made money, and then bought a beautiful house. They would be cheering at that. In Australia, we condemn it. And I think that's a really sad thing. What I do agree with is the timing of this. People are saying it's bad optics, which I do agree with that. And I think classic Albo, he's a bit of an idiot when it comes to these things. He can't really read the room. He should have waited until after the election, or he should have put it in his fiance's name so it wouldn't be splashed across the news. He could have said she bought it, whatever, like little porky pies. But to do it in the middle of a housing crisis, in the middle of a cost of living crisis, even though he should be able to buy whatever he wants to buy with his own money, to do it when people are struggling at this very moment, which a lot of people are, and he's the Prime Minister of the country, timing, not the best. But that doesn't take away the fact that it's not a bad thing that he did it. And I think this constant criticism, this constant media attack, focusing on the stupid house that I'm so over, is really taking the attention away from his actual failures in doing his job. Let's talk about cost of living. Let's talk about the fact that you can get a packet of Tim Tams in the UK for cheaper than you can buy it for here. Let's talk about the fact that we have given more visas to Palestinian immigrants than anywhere else in the world. Let's talk about the fact that we are bringing people in from countries that are very dangerous, that don't share our culture or our worldview, and just accepting them into our society with very little checks. And let's talk about the fact that people are marching on the street in celebration and support of literal terrorist organizations, and nothing is being done about it. That's a bigger problem than Anthony Albanese buying a $4.3 million house. Or maybe let's talk about the dire state of our education system, where we keep dropping and dropping in our literacy and numeracy rates because our universities spit out teachers who have been indoctrinated with this woke mind virus and don't teach ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Instead, talk to kids about their gender identity and that it's okay to one day identify as a boy and the next identify as a girl. Oh, and by the way, they're allowing furries to be sitting at the back of the classroom with their kitty litter. Let's talk about that. Or maybe let's fix this ruined judiciary system that we have that is letting out rapists and murderers and drug dealers time and time and time again. The fact that we have domestic violence perpetrators getting out onto the street again and again and again when there is clear evidence to say that they are dangerous people. They go into jail, they get out after a month, they get bail, they go back on the street, they offend again, the same person, that person then dies, and then people are saying, oh, whoops, we made a mistake. Where are the judges? Where is the accountability from all aspects? The police, the judges, the government. Why are they all dropping the ball about this? And then let's talk about the NDIS, that dumpster fire, which is hemorrhaging cash. Hemorrhaging it and not helping the people that it needs to be helping. People that are really disabled, that require 24/7 assistance, are going without because they're giving others exotic massages and dance lessons. Or maybe let's talk about the waste that's contributing to the cost of living crisis. Billions of dollars going to the ABC and nothing being done with it, completely wasted. $30 billion a year going to Indigenous services and outcomes not getting better year after year after year. Why is there no accountability for this? If this was a business and we were giving $30 billion to a sector that showed zero improvement year on year over a span of 50 years, what would happen to that sector? It would be cut immediately. We need to be looking at these things. Imagine what healthcare, what education, what the NDIS could do with all of that money. Instead, we waste it on bureaucracy. And then in the broader government, wasting it on public service positions that are not necessary. What I would do, instead of berating Anthony Albanese for buying a $4.3 million house, is I would cut the public service. Then maybe we could give the Prime Minister more money to attract a better person to run the country, and we would all be better off. You need a great person at the top to lead all of this, to have the initiative and the foresight to craft a country that will work, that's productive, that's efficient, that is future-facing. Not these government hacks that have been in the job for 30 years. Yes, like Albanese. And this is why I'm criticizing the whole system, and I'm not going to stoop to the level of just criticizing the man, because he's only existing within the system that we have created for him. So much needs to change, and to minimize the conversation to bagging some guy who's worked his entire life for buying a $4.3 million house, which is just above the average, I'm not down for. I'm not going to partake in this childish conversation and pile on.